My name is Rebecca Thompson, 32 years old, and I was calling my mother from the airport, wheeling my suitcase behind me after a grueling business trip abroad. Mom, I made it back just in time. I'm so excited for Megan's wedding tomorrow, I said cheerfully. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Honey, what are you talking about? The wedding was last week, my mother replied, her voice unnervingly calm. I stopped dead in my tracks, people rushing past me in all directions. This had to be some cruel joke. As reality sank in my stomach, dropped to the floor. That's when I realized my family had deliberately excluded me from the most important day of my sister's life. Before I dive into this nightmare, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. If you've ever felt betrayed by family, hit that like button and subscribe to my channel for more real-life stories that will make you question everything you thought you knew about family loyalty. Now, let me tell you how my perfect life unraveled in the span of one phone call. Growing up in our suburban Connecticut home, Megan and I were inseparable despite our 6-year age gap. I still remember braiding her hair before school, teaching her how to ride a bike, and staying up late whispering secrets under blanket forts. When our father walked out on us when I was 12 and Megan just 6, we became even closer, united in our shared pain and confusion. I became her protector, her confidant, her second mother in many ways, while our real mother, Catherine, worked double shifts to keep a roof over our heads. Becca, when I get married someday, you'll be my maid of honor, right, 10-year-old? Megan had asked me one night as we looked at stars from our bedroom window. Of course I will, Megs. I had promised, never imagining that 15 years later I wouldn't even be invited to her wedding. After high school, I received a full scholarship to NYU, while Megan stayed local, attending community college. This was the beginning of the subtle shift in our relationship. Every time I came home for holidays, Megan seemed a little more distant, a little more resentful. While I was climbing the corporate ladder at a prestigious marketing firm in Manhattan, Megan struggled to find her passion, jumping from major to major, job to job. Not everyone can be perfect like you, Becca, she'd snap whenever I tried to offer advice or encouragement. I chalked it up to normal sibling rivalry, never suspecting the depth of her resentment. 3 years ago, Megan met Tyler Hayes at a charity gala. 35, devastatingly handsome and seemingly wealthy from his real estate development company, he swept her off her feet. I was initially happy for her, finally. Megan had found someone who made her smile like she used to. But something about Tyler set off alarm bells I couldn't quite identify. The way his smile never reached his eyes when he looked at me, how he'd steer Megan away whenever I tried to have a private conversation with her. At their engagement party last year, I noticed something troubling. Megan and our mother, Catherine, huddled in a corner, whispering intensely. When I approached, they abruptly stopped talking, plastering identical fake smiles on their faces. "What are you two conspiring about?" I joked, trying to ease the sudden tension. "Just wedding details," my mother dismissed with a wave of her hand. "Nothing for you to worry about." I should have pressed further. I should have recognized the warning signs. But caught up in my own career success, I'd just been promoted to marketing executive with a major international client portfolio. I brushed it off as wedding stress. Megan had always been high-strung, easily overwhelmed. I figured she'd come around once the wedding planning stress subsided. 2 months before the wedding, my Japanese client scheduled an emergency meeting in Tokyo that couldn't be rescheduled. I immediately called Megan to make sure it wouldn't conflict with her big day. "Don't worry," Megan had assured me, her voice unusually light. "The wedding is on May 15th. You'll be back by then." "You're sure it's the 15th? I could have sworn the save the date," said the 8th. I pressed, flipping through my calendar. "It's definitely the 15th, Megan insisted. "We changed it. Venue issues." I believed her. Why wouldn't I? She was my sister. The thought that she would deliberately lie to me about her wedding date never crossed my mind. That's the thing about betrayal. It's always done by the people you never suspect. The truth hit me like a freight train as I stood in that airport terminal, my mother's words echoing in my ears. The wedding was last week. 4 words that shattered everything I thought I knew about my family, about my place in it. 4 words that would set me on a path to uncover layers of deception I never could have imagined. I drove straight from the airport to my family home, tears blurring my vision as I navigated the familiar streets of my childhood. My hands shook on the steering wheel, my mind racing with possible explanations. There had been a mistake, a misunderstanding, anything other than the deliberate exclusion I feared. The house looked exactly as it always had, my mother's prized roses blooming along the walkway, the porch swing where Megan and I had spent countless summer evenings. But today it felt foreign, unwelcoming. My mother answered the door, my stepfather Richard hovering behind her. Catherine's face registered shock, then quickly settled into something harder, more defensive. "Rebecca, I didn't expect to see you," she said, making no move to invite me in. "Mom, please tell me what's going on," I pleaded, pushing past her into the entryway. "How could Megan's wedding have been last week? She told me it was on the 15th. Catherine crossed her arms, exchanging a glance with Richard. "We all knew you wouldn't come anyway. Always too busy with your important job and important life in the city to bother with family." The casual cruelty of her words stunned me. "What are you talking about?" I rearranged my entire schedule to be here for Megan's wedding. I would never miss it. "Well, you did," she said simply. And Megan was heartbroken, though not surprised. I felt like I was drowning, gasping for air in a house that had once been my sanctuary. "Show me the invitation," I demanded. "Show me proof that the wedding was scheduled for May 8th, not the 15th like Megan told me." Richard, looking uncomfortable, disappeared into their home office while my mother glared at me. He returned with a stack of spare invitations, handing one to me wordlessly. There it was in elegant script, May 8th. Not May 15th, as Megan had insisted. My hands trembled as I read and reread the date, trying to make sense of such a deliberate deception. "This doesn't make any sense," I whispered. "Why would Megan lie to me about her wedding date?" "Maybe you should ask yourself why your sister wouldn't want you at the most important day of her life," my mother replied, her voice dripping with satisfaction. I pulled out my phone and opened Instagram, something I rarely checked during business trips. There they were, dozens of photos from Megan's wedding. My cousin Allison's page showed the ceremony, the reception, the cake cutting. Everyone was there. Uncles, aunts, cousins, family, friends, even my maternal grandmother, Claire, who looked confused in several photos, glancing around as if looking for someone. Looking for me, I realized with a pang. I started frantically calling relatives and friends who had attended. The story was always the same. "We thought you chose not to come. Megan said you were too busy." Everyone was talking about how you declined the invitation. My cousin Allison was the first to give me something concrete. "Someone showed me a text message from your number saying you couldn't make it because of work. I thought it was strange since you'd always been so close to Megan, but people drift apart, you know." A text I never sent. An invitation with a date that was deliberately changed when communicated to me. A family who believed I had willingly abandoned my sister on her wedding day. It was becoming clear that someone had gone to extraordinary lengths to ensure I missed Megan's wedding, to drive a permanent wedge between us. As I drove back to my apartment, mind reeling from the revelations, I wondered who hated me enough to orchestrate such an elaborate deception. Arriving home, I checked my mailbox, something I hadn't done in the 2 weeks I was in Japan. There, nestled between bills and junk mail, was Megan's wedding invitation. I tore it open with shaking hands. May 8th. But I distinctly remembered Megan telling me May 15th. I hadn't imagined that conversation. Someone was gaslighting me, making me question my own memory, my own reality. And I was determined to find out who and why. The next morning, I drove back to my family home, armed with determination and a voice recorder hidden in my purse. If I was going to uncover the truth, I needed evidence. No one would believe my word against my entire family's. Catherine was alone when I arrived, Richard having left for his insurance office. Perfect. One-on-one was exactly what I needed. "Back again?" she asked, reluctantly letting me in. I would have thought yesterday made things clear enough. "Nothing is clear, Mom," I said, following her into the kitchen where she had been arranging flowers, always keeping up appearances, my mother. "Someone deliberately made sure I missed Megan's wedding, and I need to know why." Catherine busied herself with the flowers, avoiding my gaze. Maybe it's time you accepted that not everything revolves around you, Rebecca. Megan has her own life now. This isn't about me being the center of attention. It's about someone actively working to exclude me, I insisted. Did you know Megan told me the wedding was on the 15th, not the 8th? A slight pause in her movements was the only indication that my words hit a nerve. I'm sure you misheard. I didn't mishear, I said firmly. And it's interesting that everyone received messages supposedly from me, declining the invitation messages I never sent. Catherine slammed a vase down on the counter. What exactly are you implying, Rebecca? The tension between us crackled like electricity. I thought about all the times throughout my childhood when Catherine had subtly favored Megan the larger birthday parties, the more elaborate Christmas gifts, the constant praise while my achievements were met with cool acknowledgement. I'm implying that you've always resented me, I said quietly. Ever since Dad left. Catherine's face hardened. That's ridiculous. Is it you've always treated me differently because I look like him? Because I remind you of the man who abandoned you? You don't know what you're talking about, she snapped, but I could see the truth flashing in her eyes. I think I do. I think you've spent years poisoning Megan against me because it was easier than dealing with your own issues. Catherine's facade finally cracked. You've always thought you were better than us, she hissed. With your fancy degree and your big city job and your perfect life, looking down on us pitying poor Megan who couldn't measure up to brilliant Rebecca. You have no idea what it's been like living in your shadow. That's not true, I protested, genuinely shocked. I've always supported Megan, always tried to help her. Help her, Catherine laughed bitterly. Is that what you call it? The condescending advice, the constant reminders of how successful you are. My mind was spinning, but one thing was becoming clearer by the minute my mother had played a significant role in whatever happened with the wedding. Did you change the date Megan gave me? I asked directly. Catherine's silence was damning. Did you intercept my communications with Megan Block, my messages somehow? Another silence, her eyes shifting away. A horrible thought struck me. All those times Megan seemed distant. All those times she didn't respond to my gifts or cards. That was you, wasn't it? Something in Catherine's expression confirmed my suspicion. I ran upstairs to the attic, ignoring her protests. In the far corner behind old Christmas decorations, I found a box labeled Rebecca. Inside were years of birthday cards, holiday gifts, handwritten letters I had sent to Megan, all unopened. All hidden away by the woman who was supposed to love us both equally. She never even saw these, did she? I asked Catherine, who had followed me upstairs. You made her think I didn't care. Catherine's eyes filled with tears, manipulative tears I now recognized. I was protecting her from being hurt by you just like I was hurt by your father. I was about to respond when Richard appeared in the attic doorway, having come home for lunch. The look on his face told me he had heard enough to understand what was happening. Catherine, what have you done? He asked quietly. To my surprise, Richard walked to a cabinet in the corner and pulled out a folder. Rebecca, you should see this. Inside were printed emails between Catherine and various family members, orchestrating the narrative that I was too busy for Megan's wedding. There were draft messages to be sent from a spoofed number matching mine declining the invitation. There was even a note about making sure I received an invitation with the correct date, but only after the wedding had passed, ensuring I would have evidence that I had simply forgotten or misunderstood. I found these last week, Richard said grimly. I was waiting for the right time to confront your mother. Catherine burst into tears. Real ones this time. You don't understand. She was going to hurt Megan eventually, just like her father hurt me. I was protecting my baby. By lying, by manipulating everyone, by turning Megan against her own sister, I asked, my voice breaking. What kind of protection is that? As I gathered the evidence and prepared to leave, Catherine delivered one final blow. Megan is better off without you in her life. We all are. I walked out of my childhood home with tears streaming down my face and a broken heart. But mixed with the pain was something else, determination. If my own mother could betray me so thoroughly, who else had been part of this deception, and most importantly, what had they told Megan to make her go along with it? After discovering my mother's betrayal, I knew I needed to approach this systematically. If Catherine was capable of such manipulation, who else might be involved? My mind kept returning to Tyler Hayes, Megan's new husband. There had always been something about him that set off warning bells. I called Tyler directly, suggesting we meet to clear the air. To my surprise, he readily agreed, proposing an upscale restaurant downtown for lunch the following day. When I arrived, Tyler was already seated at a corner table, looking every bit the successful businessman in his tailored suit. He stood to greet me with a warm smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Rebecca, it's good to see you," he said, gesturing for me to sit. "Though I have to say your timing is unfortunate. Megan was quite hurt that you missed our wedding." I maintained my composure, playing along. "There seems to have been a misunderstanding about the date. Megan told me it was on the 15th. Tyler's expression was a masterclass in calculated sympathy. "Ah, that explains it. Poor communication, it happens in families. Though I'm surprised you didn't double-check such an important date." Something in his tone made my skin crawl. He was too smooth, too practiced. "I did double-check with Megan directly," I replied. "Which is why this whole situation is so confusing." Tyler signaled for the waiter, ordering expensive wine without consulting me. "Families are complicated, Rebecca. Sometimes people need space to grow. Megan has always lived in your shadow. Perhaps missing the wedding was for the best in the long run. A clean break." His words echoed my mother's sentiments so precisely it couldn't be coincidence. "Have you and my mother discussed this clean break theory?" A flicker of something annoyance concern crossed his face before the pleasant mask returned. "Catherine and I want what's best for Megan. Sometimes that means difficult decisions." The conversation continued in this vein, Tyler skillfully deflecting direct questions, while suggesting that my relationship with Megan had been unhealthy, that I had somehow held her back. By the time we parted ways, my suspicions had solidified into certainty. Tyler Hayes was no innocent bystander in this deception. That night, I began researching Tyler more thoroughly than I ever had before. His real estate development company, Hayes Luxury Properties, had an impressive website but surprisingly little concrete information. Through professional connections, I obtained access to business records that showed a company in financial trouble with several failed developments and pending lawsuits from investors. The breakthrough came when I located Jason Mills, Tyler's former business partner. After several emails back and forth, he agreed to meet me at a coffee shop on the outskirts of town. "I'm not surprised Tyler found another wealthy family to attach himself to," Jason said grimly after I explained my situation. "It's his pattern." "What do you mean?" I asked, my stomach tightening. "Tyler targets women with money, or access to money. He's charming, attentive, the perfect boyfriend or husband, until he gets what he wants." Jason pushed a folder across the table. "These are records from our business partnership and copies of complaints from 3 other women. All followed the same pattern. Tyler isolated them from family members who asked too many questions, then gradually gained control of their finances." As I flipped through the documents, one detail jumped out: Megan's trust fund. Our maternal grandfather had left both of us substantial trust funds accessible upon marriage or turning 30. Megan had just gained access to hers through her marriage to Tyler. "Has Megan mentioned anything about her trust fund?" I asked. "Any large withdrawals or investments?" "He's convinced her to invest in our new development in Aspen," Jason confirmed. "About 80% of her trust fund, from what I understand. A development that, according to the documents in front of me, didn't actually exist." I confronted Tyler at his office the next day, armed with the evidence of his past schemes and financial improprieties. I walked past his protesting secretary and slammed the door behind me. "You're scamming my sister," I said without preamble, dropping the folder on his desk. Tyler's charming facade dissolved instantly, his face hardening into something cold and calculating. "You should have stayed away, Rebecca. Did you work with my mother to keep me away from the wedding? To keep me from warning Megan?" He smiled then, a predatory expression that sent chills down my spine. Catherine was surprisingly easy to manipulate. She already resented you. All I had to do was nurture that feeling, suggest that you were a negative influence on Megan. I'm going to tell Megan everything I threatened. Tyler circled his desk, invading my personal space. She won't believe you. No one will. I've made sure of that. Stay away from my wife, or you'll regret it. I stood my ground. Is that a threat? Consider it friendly advice. Family drama is so messy, best to keep your distance. I left his office shaken, but more determined than ever. That night, anonymous threatening texts started arriving on my phone. Back off, or else. Mind your own business. No one will believe you. 2 days later, I returned to my apartment to find the door slightly ajar. Nothing had been stolen, but all the framed photos of Megan and me had been smashed, the pictures torn to shreds. I called the building security, who showed me footage of someone in a hoodie and baseball cap, face carefully concealed, but with the same build and gait as Tyler entering my building by following another resident inside. As I swept up the broken glass and torn photographs, I realized I was dealing with someone far more dangerous than I had initially thought. Tyler wasn't just a con man, he was willing to threaten and intimidate to protect his scheme. And he had managed to turn my own family against me in the process. With evidence mounting against both my mother and Tyler, I needed to understand how deep this conspiracy went. Had my entire family been complicit in excluding me from Megan's wedding, or were they unwitting pawns in Catherine and Tyler's manipulation? I started with my Uncle David, my mother's younger brother, who had always been kind to me growing up. We met at his favorite fishing spot by the lake, away from potentially prying ears. "I thought you didn't want to be at the wedding, Becca," he said, genuinely confused after I explained the situation. "Catherine told everyone you were too busy with work to attend. Then someone showed us messages from you saying the same thing." "I never sent those messages, Uncle David. I was deliberately given the wrong date." David ran a hand over his weathered face. "Jesus, Becca. I had no idea. But now that I think about it, your grandmother Claire kept asking where you were during the ceremony. She seemed confused when Catherine said you couldn't make it. Did anyone else question my absence?" I pressed. "Not really. There's been talk for years about how you abandoned the family for your big city life." His eyes couldn't meet mine. "Catherine would mention how you never called, never sent cards or gifts. All the cards and gifts she had hidden in the attic. All the calls that mysteriously went unanswered. Years of deliberate sabotage designed to isolate me from my family." My investigation led next to my cousin Jessica, who had been particularly cold to me at family gatherings in recent years. She agreed to meet reluctantly, her hostility palpable as we sat at a park bench. "Why are you stirring up drama now?" she demanded. "The wedding's over. Let it go." "Jessica, I need to understand what happened. What did people think about me not being there?" She shrugged. "Everyone talked about how selfish you are. How you couldn't be bothered to attend your own sister's wedding because you think you're too good for us now. And you believed that after growing up together, you really thought I'd skip Megan's wedding without a word." Something in my voice must have reached her because her defensive posture softened slightly. "I guess it did seem out of character even for how you've been lately. But then there were those messages." "What messages exactly?" Jessica pulled out her phone, showing me screenshots of conversations supposedly between us. Conversations that never happened, where I belittled our family, complained about having to attend provincial functions, and generally acted like an elitist snob. "I never wrote any of this," I said, examining the messages. They were convincingly crafted to look like they came from my number, but the language was all wrong. "Jessica, when have you ever heard me use the word provincial?" A flash of doubt crossed her face. "I just assumed you'd changed since moving to New York, gotten too sophisticated for us, and it didn't occur to you to ask me directly about any of this." Jessica had the grace to look ashamed. "I was jealous," she admitted. "Your perfect job, perfect apartment, perfect life. It was easier to believe you'd turned into a snob than to deal with my own issues." The pattern continued as I spoke with one family member after another. Each had a piece of the puzzle, altered messages, selective information rumors presented as facts. My Aunt Patricia revealed she'd been told I considered Megan's wedding too low class for my attendance. My stepfather, Richard, admitted knowing some of what Catherine was doing, but staying silent to keep the peace. The picture that emerged was devastating. For years, Catherine had been systematically poisoning my family against me, creating a narrative of abandonment and elitism that made my absence from Megan's wedding seem completely in character. Tyler had accelerated and exploited this division, using it to further isolate Megan from the one person who might recognize what he was doing. It all came to a head at a Sunday dinner at Catherine and Richard's house, a dinner I wasn't invited to but attended anyway, walking in unannounced as everyone was seated around the table. Rebecca. My grandmother Claire's face lit up with genuine delight. "Where have you been, dear? I missed you at the wedding." The rest of the family exchanged uncomfortable glances as I took an empty chair. "That's actually why I'm here," I said, clearly making eye contact with each person around the table. "I've discovered that I was deliberately given the wrong wedding date, and that someone has been sending fake messages in my name for years." The uncomfortable silence was broken by Catherine's forced laugh. "Rebecca, sweetie, I think the stress of your job is getting to you. Why would anyone do such a thing? To isolate me from the family. To make sure I couldn't interfere with Tyler's plans for Megan's trust fund." Chaos erupted. Tyler, seated beside Megan, whispered urgently in her ear. My mother loudly dismissed my paranoid fantasies. Various relatives talked over one another, some defending me, others calling me delusional. Megan finally spoke, her voice cutting through the noise. "I think you should leave, Rebecca. You're just jealous that I finally have something you don't." The hurt in her eyes was real, but so was the manipulation behind it. "Megan, please just talk to me alone. There's so much you don't know." "I know enough," she said coldly. "You couldn't stand that my wedding was the center of attention instead of you, so now you're making up conspiracy theories. It's pathetic." I looked around at the family I'd grown up with most now, regarding me with suspicion or outright hostility, and realized I couldn't win, not here, not now. Too many of them were too invested in the false narrative about me. "I'm not giving up on you, Megan," I said quietly, rising from the table. "When you're ready to hear the truth, I'll be there." I walked out of the house feeling the weight of their judgment on my back, but as I reached my car, I heard shuffling footsteps behind me. Grandmother Claire, leaning on her cane, had followed me outside. "Something's not right with all this," she said, her aged eyes sharp with intelligence. "Catherine's always been jealous of you, you know. You remind her too much of your father, all his good qualities that she couldn't hold on to." She pressed something into my hand, a small diary. "I've been keeping notes. My memory isn't what it used to be, but I write things down. There are conversations in there, things Catherine and that husband of Megan's have said when they thought I couldn't hear. Read it then, come see me." As I drove away, I felt a glimmer of hope through the despair. I wasn't completely alone in this fight, and with every person I spoke to, every piece of evidence I gathered, I was one step closer to the truth and to saving my sister from the web of lies that had ensnared her. After my confrontation with the family, I needed an ally, someone outside the family drama who could help me reach Megan. Haley Wilson seemed the perfect choice. My best friend since third grade, she had been like a sister to me and had remained close to Megan even after I moved to New York. If anyone could help me navigate this mess, it would be Haley. I called her the next morning, suggesting we meet for coffee at our old high school hangout. Her hesitation was subtle but noticeable. Sure, Becca. How about tomorrow afternoon? I'm pretty busy today." "It's important, Haley. It's about Megan's wedding, the one I apparently missed." Another pause. "Yeah, everyone was surprised you didn't show. But you know work comes first for you these days." The familiar accusation made my suspicions flare, but I kept my voice casual. "Actually, that's what I want to talk about. There's been a huge misunderstanding." We agreed to meet at Milo's coffee shop at 2 the next day. I arrived early, selecting a table in the corner where we could speak privately. Haley arrived 10 minutes late, looking nervous, her normally confident stride hesitant as she spotted me. You look great, she said, giving me a quick hug before sitting down. How's the big city treating you? We made small talk for a few minutes, catching up on superficial details of our lives, but I could feel her anxiety building. Finally, I decided to cut to the chase. Haley, did you know? I was told Megan's wedding was on May 15th, not May 8th. She took too long to respond, her eyes darting away from mine. Really? That's weird. Must have been a mix-up. A very convenient mix-up, don't you think? Especially considering someone has been sending fake messages from my number telling everyone I couldn't be bothered to attend. Haley fidgeted with her coffee cup. Look, Becca, I don't know what to tell you. These things happen. No, Haley, they don't. Not accidentally. I leaned forward. You were Megan's maid of honor. You helped plan the wedding. Did you know the date was changed for me? I don't know what you're talking about, she stammered, but her face had gone pale. You do know, I said quietly. I can see it in your eyes. Haley, we've been friends for 25 years. Please tell me the truth. Her composure cracked, tears welling in her eyes. I'm sorry, Becca. I never thought it would go this far. It was just supposed to be a small lie to give Megan her day without your shadow over her. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. You helped them exclude me from my own sister's wedding. You don't understand what it's been like for her, always being Rebecca's little sister, never measuring up. When she met Tyler, he was the first person who made her feel special, who put her first. Tyler is conning her, Haley. He's after her trust fund. He's isolated her from me because I would have seen through his act. Haley shook her head vehemently. No, Tyler loves her. He wants what's best for her. Something clicked in my mind. Oh my God, you're in love with him. The flash of pain across Haley's face confirmed my suspicion before she could deny it. That's ridiculous. No, it makes perfect sense now. Tyler charmed you just like he charmed my mother and Megan. He used you to help cut me out of the picture. Haley's tears flowed freely now. It wasn't like that. Not at first. He understood how hard it was always being in your shadow, too. You've always been the successful one, the beautiful one, the one everyone admires. Do you have any idea what that's like for the rest of us? So you helped sabotage my relationship with my sister because you were jealous, I asked incredulously. I rescheduled your business trip, she confessed in a small voice. I still had the password to your work email from when I helped you that time your phone died. I confirmed the Tokyo meeting for the week of Megan's wedding, then deleted the confirmation emails. The depth of the betrayal left me speechless. Haley had been my confidant, my support system since childhood. We'd shared everything, dreams, fears, secrets, and all along she'd harbored this resentment, this jealousy that had festered until it poisoned our friendship. Tyler said it would be better this way, she continued, unable to meet my eyes. That you would only try to control Megan's life like you always have. And Catherine agreed. She said you'd always tried to take Megan away from her. I loved Megan. I tried to protect her, to help her, I exclaimed, drawing stares from nearby tables. By always showing her up, by being so perfect that she could never compete, Haley shot back, her own anger flaring. You have no idea how many times she cried after you left for college, feeling abandoned. How many times she's compared herself to you and found herself lacking. That was never my intention, I said, my voice breaking. Intentions don't matter, Becca. Results do. And the result was Megan feeling like she was never good enough. I took a deep breath, trying to process everything. So you, my mother, and Tyler all conspired to exclude me from the most important day of my sister's life, based on perceived slights and jealousy. Did Megan know? Did she know you were all lying to me about the date? Haley's hesitation told me everything I needed to know. She knew I whispered the final betrayal, cutting deepest of all. She just wanted one day where she wasn't living in your shadow, Haley said, as if that justified everything. I stood up, gathering my purse. Tell me something, Haley. In all your concern for Megan's feelings, did any of you ever stop to consider mine? Did you ever think about how it would feel to discover my entire family and my best friend had conspired to exclude me from my sister's wedding? Haley's face crumpled. Becca, I'm sorry. I never meant. Yes, you did. I cut her off. You meant to hurt me. All of you did. And now I have to try to save Megan from a con man without any support because everyone who should have been on my side chose jealousy and resentment instead. I walked out of the coffee shop, leaving 25 years of friendship behind. The weight of isolation pressed down on me as I sat in my car, tears flowing freely. Everyone I had trusted, everyone I loved, had betrayed me in the most fundamental way possible. As I started the engine, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You look like you could use a friend. This is Daniel Rodriguez from your Tokyo meeting. I'm in town for the week and saw you at Milo's just now. That looked intense. If you need to talk, I'm staying at the Marriott downtown. Daniel had been the client representative in Tokyo, a kind, perceptive man who had noticed my distraction during the meetings and offered support without prying. In a world where everyone I trusted had turned against me, the simple offer of friendship from a near stranger felt like a lifeline. That night, over dinner with Daniel, I poured out the whole sordid tale. He listened without judgment, asking occasional clarifying questions. So what now, he asked when I finished. Do you give up? Walk away. I thought about Megan, about the sister I had loved and protected since childhood, now in the clutches of a manipulative con man. No, I can't abandon her even if she thinks that's exactly what I've done all along. Daniel nodded thoughtfully. Then you need to approach this strategically. Stop thinking like a hurt sister and start thinking like the marketing executive you are. You need evidence, allies, and a plan for presenting your case in a way that can't be dismissed. For the first time since that terrible phone call at the airport, I felt a spark of hope. I might have lost my family and my best friend to lies and manipulation, but I had found unexpected support and a new determination. Tyler, my mother, and even Haley had underestimated me. They thought their betrayal would break me. Instead, it had only made me more resolved to fight back. The morning after my dinner with Daniel, I woke with a clarity I hadn't felt since this nightmare began. He was right. I needed to approach this strategically, not emotionally. I created a detailed timeline of events, mapping out each betrayal and manipulation, identifying key players and their motivations. My mother's jealousy and resentment stemming from my resemblance to my father. Tyler's financial schemes targeting women with access to money. Haley's long-simmering jealousy and infatuation with Tyler. All of it converging to create the perfect storm that had isolated me from my sister at the moment she needed me most. But to convince Megan, I needed irrefutable evidence, particularly about Tyler. Daniel had contacts in the financial industry who helped me track down two of Tyler's previous girlfriends. The first, Amanda, initially refused to speak with me, clearly frightened. The second, Vanessa, agreed to meet. He's dangerous, Vanessa told me, over coffee in a quiet corner of a hotel lobby. Not physically, Tyler's too smart for that, but emotionally, financially. He isolates you from anyone who might question him, makes you dependent on him, then bleeds you dry. Did he target your money, specifically, I asked? My inheritance from my grandmother. Nearly $300,000 gone into a can't-miss investment opportunity. Her bitter laugh held no humor. By the time I realized what was happening, he had legal access to all my accounts. I had signed everything over to him, believing we were building a future together. Did you go to the police? Of course. But everything was legal. I had willingly signed the documents. Tyler knows exactly how far he can go without breaking the law. I needed more concrete evidence, something that would be impossible for Megan to dismiss. After consulting with Daniel, I hired Sarah Connor, a private investigator specializing in financial fraud. I can follow the money, Sarah assured me after reviewing the information I had gathered. If he's done this before, there will be a pattern accounts he uses repeatedly offshore holdings where he thinks the money is untraceable. While Sarah worked on tracing Tyler's financial activities, I focused on gathering evidence of the conspiracy to exclude me from the wedding. I returned to my mother's house when I knew she would be at her book club, Richard having agreed to leave the door unlocked for me. In Catherine's home office, I found a folder hidden in a false bottom of her desk drawer labeled simply R. Inside were printed copies of the fake text messages sent in my name notes on the wedding date, deception, and most damning of all emails between Catherine and Tyler discussing their plans. R still believes wedding is on 15th, read one email from Tyler. K confirmed has no suspicion. Will ensure business trip coincides with real date. My hands shook with rage as I read their calculated manipulation, the casual way they discussed destroying my relationship with my sister. I photographed every document, leaving everything exactly as I found it. Richard was waiting in the kitchen when I came downstairs. "Did you find what you needed?" he asked quietly. "Yes. Thank you for helping me." His expression was pained. "I should have spoken up sooner. I knew Catherine was difficult about you, but I had no idea how far she had gone until I found those emails. I've been a coward, Rebecca, and I'm sorry." "Why is she like this?" I asked the question that had haunted me for years, finally finding voice. "What did I ever do to make her hate me so much?" Richard sighed heavily. "It's not you. It's never been you. When your father left, Catherine couldn't handle the abandonment. Instead of dealing with her pain, she projected it onto you because you reminded her of him. Every success you had, every milestone, was like salt in her wounds, and she taught Megan to see you the same way. His honesty was brutal but necessary. For the first time, I truly understood that my mother's hatred had nothing to do with me, and everything to do with her own unresolved trauma. It didn't excuse her actions, but it helped me see them more clearly. With Richard now openly allied with me, I had a source of information within the family. Meanwhile, Sarah Connor's investigation was bearing fruit. She had discovered offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands linked to Tyler containing substantial sums transferred from accounts belonging to his previous victims and now, alarmingly, from Megan's trust fund. "Nearly $700,000 has been moved from your sister's account in the last month," Sarah reported, showing me the transaction records. "He's moving faster than with his previous victims. Usually, he takes smaller amounts over time to avoid raising suspicion. He knows I'm onto him, I realized. He's accelerating his timeline before I can interfere." The final piece fell into place when Amanda Tyler's previous girlfriend, who had initially refused to meet me, called in the middle of the night. "I saw him today," she said, her voice trembling. "Tyler. He was with a woman I assume is your sister. The way he looked at her, it was the same way he looked at me before everything fell apart. I couldn't live with myself if I didn't warn her." We met the next morning, Amanda bringing documentation of her relationship with Tyler and the financial devastation he had left behind. Combined with Vanessa's testimony, Sarah's financial investigation, and the evidence of conspiracy from my mother's office, I finally had everything I needed to confront Tyler and rescue Megan. I assembled the evidence into a comprehensive presentation, making multiple copies and backing everything up securely. Then I recorded a conversation with my mother, carefully leading her to admit her role in the wedding date deception and her long-standing campaign to alienate me from Megan. "Did you ever think about what this would do to her?" I asked Catherine during our recorded conversation. "When she eventually discovers what Tyler is doing with her money—" "She won't discover anything," Catherine replied dismissively. "Tyler assured me his business dealings are completely legitimate. And you believed him because he told you what you wanted to hear, that I was the problem, that I needed to be pushed out of Megan's life." Catherine's silence was damning. "How could you do this to your own daughters?" I pressed. "I did what was best for Megan," she insisted. "You've never understood her like I do. You've always thought you knew better, just like your father." With the recording secured, I approached Richard with the full extent of the evidence I had gathered. "My God," he murmured as he reviewed the financial documentation. "Catherine has no idea what she's helped facilitate, does she?" "No. She was so focused on pushing me away from Megan that she never questioned Tyler's motives." Richard looked up at me, resolution in his eyes. "What do you need from me?" "Help me reach Megan. She won't see me willingly, not after everything they've told her about me. But I need to show her this evidence before Tyler completely drains her trust fund. Together, we formulated a plan. Through Richard, I learned that Tyler and Megan were hosting a party at their new lake house, purchased with her trust fund money to celebrate their 1-month wedding anniversary. It would be the perfect opportunity to confront Tyler with multiple witnesses present. As the day approached, I felt a strange calm descend over me. For weeks, I had been reacting to betrayal after betrayal, fighting to understand what had happened. Now, armed with the truth and a clear plan of action, I was finally taking control of the narrative. Tyler, my mother, and everyone else who had conspired against me had underestimated my resilience and determination. They had tried to break me, to isolate me, to turn me into the villain of their story. Instead, they had given me the motivation to uncover a truth far darker than I could have imagined, and the opportunity to save my sister from a fate far worse than a missed wedding. The lake house was a sprawling, modern structure of glass and cedar, perched on the shore with panoramic views of the water. As I pulled into the crowded driveway, my hands shook slightly on the steering wheel. Everything had led to this moment, all the betrayal, all the investigation, all the heartache. I checked my appearance one last time in the rearview mirror. I had deliberately dressed in a conservative navy blue dress professional, serious nothing that could be dismissed as attention-seeking. My evidence was organized in a leather portfolio with backup copies in my car, and with Richard, who would arrive separately to avoid suspicion. The sound of laughter and music drifted from the back deck as I approached the front door. No one answered my knock, so I made my way around the house, steeling myself for what was to come. The party was in full swing, about 30 guests mingling on the expansive deck overlooking the lake. I spotted Megan, immediately radiant in a white sundress, her hand resting possessively on Tyler's arm as they chatted with guests. For a moment, seeing her so happy, even if it was built on lies, made me question my mission. Was I doing the right thing, bringing this crashing down? Then I remembered the drained trust fund, the pattern of victimization, the deliberate campaign to isolate her from me. Yes, this would hurt her, but the alternative was much worse. As I stepped onto the deck, a hush fell over the nearest group of guests. Heads turned, conversations halted mid-sentence. Megan's smile froze on her face as she spotted me. "Rebecca," she said, confusion and anger warring in her expression. "What are you doing here?" Tyler's reaction was more controlled, his eyes narrowing slightly as he assessed the threat. "This is a private party," he said, smoothly, stepping slightly in front of Megan in a subtly possessive gesture. "I need to talk to my sister," I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "It's important." "You have some nerve showing up here," Megan hissed, her cheeks flushing with anger. "After missing my wedding and then accusing everyone of some ridiculous conspiracy." Several guests shifted uncomfortably, sensing the tension. I noticed my cousins Jessica and Allison among them, watching with wide eyes. "Megan, please just give me 5 minutes. What I have to tell you can't wait." Tyler placed a proprietary hand on Megan's shoulder. "I think you should leave, Rebecca. You're upsetting my wife." "Your wife or your next victim?" I asked quietly. The deck fell completely silent. "What did you just say?" Megan demanded. I opened my portfolio, removing the financial records Sarah Connor had compiled. "I said your husband has been systematically draining your trust fund since the day after your wedding. Nearly $700,000 transferred to offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands." Tyler laughed, the sound forced and hollow. "This is absurd. Megan and I have made some investments together, that's all. Tell her, honey." Megan nodded, but I noticed uncertainty flicker across her face. "We're investing in Tyler's new development in Aspen. It's a great opportunity." "There is no development in Aspen," I said, passing her the documentation. "These are records from the county assessor's office. Hayes Luxury Properties owns no land in Aspen, has filed no building permits, has no projects in development there." Murmurs rippled through the crowd as Tyler's face hardened. "This is a private business matter that my sister-in-law is distorting to cause problems. Rebecca has always been jealous of Megan's happiness. Is that why you conspired with my mother to ensure I missed the wedding? Because you knew I'd recognize what you were doing, I countered, pulling out more documents. These are statements from 2 of your previous victims, Tyler. Or should I call you Timothy Howell, the name you used when you defrauded Amanda Lewis out of her inheritance? Gasps and whispers spread among the guests. I noticed Richard had arrived, standing quietly at the edge of the deck, ready to support my claims. This is ridiculous, Tyler sputtered, his composure cracking. Megan, don't listen to her. She's making this all up because she can't stand that you're happy without her. Megan looked from Tyler to me, confusion evident in her eyes. Becca, what are you talking about? What victims? I gestured toward the sliding glass doors leading inside. Can we talk privately, please, Megan? Anything you have to say, you can say in front of my husband, she insisted, gripping Tyler's arm tightly. Fine. I turned to address the increasingly uncomfortable gathering of guests. Many of you believe I deliberately missed Megan's wedding. The truth is, I was told the wrong date. I have evidence that Tyler and my mother conspired to ensure I wouldn't be there because they knew I would recognize what Tyler was doing. I produced copies of the emails between Tyler and Catherine, passing them to Megan and allowing other guests to see them as well. This is a invasion of privacy, Tyler snapped, trying to grab the papers from Megan's hands. She pulled away, her eyes widening as she read. Mom did this, she whispered. She deliberately told you the wrong date. Because Tyler convinced her it was for your own good, I explained gently. He's isolated you from the one person who would have seen through his scheme. It's all lies, Tyler insisted, his voice rising. Your sister has fabricated all of this because she can't stand that you're finally happy without her constant interference. I noticed Richard moving closer, a phone in his hand. On cue, he called out, Is Catherine here yet? She should hear this too. As if summoned by her name, our mother appeared at the top of the deck stairs, her face blanching when she saw me. What's going on here? Perfect timing, I said, pulling out my phone. Megan, you should hear this. I played the recording of my conversation with Catherine, her voice crystal clear as she admitted to changing the wedding date, to years of intercepting my gifts and messages to Megan, to deliberately driving a wedge between us. Tyler's suggestion. Tears welled in Megan's eyes as the recording played, her gaze darting between me, Tyler, and our mother. Mom, is this true? Catherine rushed forward, reaching for Megan. Sweetheart, you don't understand. I was protecting you. Rebecca has always overshadowed you, always made you feel inferior. I couldn't let her ruin your special day. By lying to me, by making me believe my sister didn't care enough to attend my wedding. Megan's voice broke on the last word, tears now flowing freely down her cheeks. Tyler, seeing his carefully constructed world unraveling, made one last desperate attempt. This is all a misunderstanding, he insisted, trying to pull Megan away from me. Your mother meant well, and these financial records are being completely misinterpreted. I would never. Then explain these, I interrupted, producing the final piece of evidence, bank statements showing transfers from Tyler's accounts to those of his previous victims, followed by identical transfers from Megan's trust fund to the same offshore accounts. The color drained from Tyler's face as Megan stared at the statements, recognition dawning in her eyes. This is why you've been so evasive about our investments, she said slowly. This is why you needed my signature on all those documents right after the wedding. Megan, be reasonable, Tyler pleaded, his charm evaporating as panic set in. We're building a future together. These are legitimate business transactions. With the same accounts you used to defraud Amanda Lewis and Vanessa Chen, I challenged. Both women who also believed they were building a future with you. Tyler's eyes darted around the deck, looking for an escape route, as the crowd of guests closed in, many now openly hostile, as they realized they had been used as unwitting props in his scheme. Suddenly, Tyler lunged toward me, grabbing my portfolio. You think you're so clever, don't you? Always the perfect Rebecca, swooping in to save poor little Megan. His aggressive move shocked everyone, including Megan, who stumbled backward. I held my ground, meeting his rage with calm determination. It's over, Tyler. The police have already been notified. As if on cue, two police officers appeared at the top of the deck stairs, accompanied by Richard, who had slipped away to call them as planned. "Tyler Hayes," one officer asked, "we have some questions regarding financial irregularities associated with your accounts." Tyler's face contorted with fury. He turned to Megan one last time. "Don't believe her lies. She's always been jealous of you, always wanted to control your life." But Megan wasn't looking at him anymore. She was staring at our mother devastation written across her features. "You knew," she whispered. "You knew what he was doing to me, and you helped him because you hated Rebecca that much." Catherine shook her head frantically. "No, darling, I had no idea about the money. I just thought he was good for you, that he put you first, like Rebecca never did." "Rebecca was the only one who ever truly put me first," Megan replied, her voice steadying as years of manipulated perception began to crumble. "And you made sure I couldn't see that." As the police led a protesting Tyler away for questioning, the party disintegrated into shocked conversations and hasty departures. Megan collapsed into a deck chair, her entire world imploding around her. I sat beside her, not touching, not pushing, simply being present as she processed the magnitude of the betrayal. $700,000, she murmured, staring at the financial statements in her hands. "Almost my entire trust fund. How could I have been so stupid?" "You weren't stupid," I said gently. "You were deliberately isolated from anyone who might have helped you see the truth. That's what people like Tyler do." She looked up at me, her eyes red from crying. "But I helped them do it, Becca. I knew about the wedding date. I knew they were lying to you, and I went along with it because part of me wanted to hurt you the way I thought you would hurt me all these years." Her honesty was painful but necessary for healing. "We have a lot to talk about," I acknowledged. "A lot of misunderstandings to clear up on both sides. But right now, let's focus on stopping the bleeding, okay? We need to freeze your remaining accounts before Tyler can access them remotely." As the sun set over the lake, casting long shadows across the now empty deck, Megan and I sat side by side, beginning the painful process of unraveling years of manipulation and rebuilding the trust that had been systematically destroyed. It wouldn't be easy and the road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time since that fateful phone call at the airport, I felt hope that my sister and I might find our way back to each other. 3 months after the dramatic confrontation at the lake house, I sat across from Megan at my kitchen table, watching as she signed the final paperwork to freeze her accounts and begin legal proceedings against Tyler. He had been charged with multiple counts of fraud, not just against Megan, but against his previous victims who had come forward once the story broke. "That's the last of it," she said, putting down the pen with a finality that seemed to release some of the tension from her shoulders. "The lawyers think they can recover about 30% of the trust fund. Better than nothing, I guess." "It's a start," I agreed, gathering the documents into a folder. "And you've still got your job at the gallery." Megan had recently started working at a local art gallery, discovering a passion and talent for curation that had surprised and delighted her. It was the first time she had pursued something purely for herself, not in reaction to me, or to please our mother, or to fulfill someone else's expectations. "I never would have applied there if all this hadn't happened," she admitted. "I always thought I wasn't smart enough or creative enough for something like that." "Who told you that I asked, though I already knew the answer?" "Mom, mostly. And then Tyler. Always in subtle ways, you know, never directly saying I wasn't capable, just implying that I should stick to what I know, what's safe." She looked up at me, her eyes clear and direct in a way they hadn't been for years. "I'm sorry, Becca. For everything." We'd had this conversation before over the past months, as Megan gradually untangled the web of manipulation that had distorted her perception of me, of herself, of our entire relationship. But I understood her need to say it again to continue processing the magnitude of what had happened. "I know you are," I said simply. "And I'm sorry, too, for not seeing what was happening sooner, for not realizing how Mom was poisoning our relationship." Megan shook her head. "How could you have known? She was so careful, so subtle. And I was a willing participant. I wanted to believe you didn't care that you thought you were better than us. It made it easier to justify my resentment." Her honesty was part of our new commitment to absolute transparency with each other, no matter how painful. We had spent too many years with secrets and assumptions festering between us. "Have you talked to Mom this week?" I asked, changing the subject slightly. Megan's expression hardened. "No. Richard called to check in, but I'm still not ready to speak with her directly." Catherine had refused to acknowledge her role in the deception, doubling down on her narrative that everything she had done was to protect Megan from my supposed negative influence. She had been horrified by Tyler's financial fraud, but remained convinced that keeping me away from the wedding had been the right decision. "She's seeing a therapist now," I mentioned, pouring more coffee for both of us. Richard insisted, said it was that or he was filing for divorce. "Good for him," Megan murmured. I never realized how much he enabled her behavior by staying silent. "He's trying to make amends in his own way," I said. Richard had been instrumental in helping us untangle the financial mess Tyler had created, using his insurance industry connections to navigate the complex legal proceedings. We had both learned difficult lessons about forgiveness over these months, when it was possible, when it required boundaries, and when it needed to be withheld until genuine remorse was demonstrated. I had forgiven Megan relatively quickly, recognizing that she had been as much a victim of manipulation as I had been. My mother was a different story, her betrayal too fundamental, too calculated to simply move past. "I'm still seeing Dr. Winters next week," Megan said, referring to the therapist we had both been working with, sometimes together, sometimes separately. "She thinks we should try a joint session with Mom eventually, but only when we're both ready." "I'm not there yet," I admitted. "Maybe someday, but not now." "Me neither," Megan agreed. She hesitated, then added, "I ran into Haley yesterday at the grocery store." My stomach tightened at the mention of my former best friend. "How was that?" "Awkward. She asked about you. Said she's been trying to reach you." I had blocked Haley's number after our confrontation at the coffee shop. Her betrayal had been particularly painful given our history, the years of friendship that had apparently meant nothing when weighed against her jealousy and infatuation with Tyler. "I'm not ready to talk to her either," I said firmly. "Maybe never." Megan nodded, understanding. "That's fair. She was asking about moving back in with me now that I'm staying here with you." I told her the room was already rented out. After the collapse of her marriage and the freezing of her accounts, Megan had temporarily moved into my spare bedroom while she rebuilt her life. What had started as an emergency measure had evolved into a healing arrangement for both of us, giving us the opportunity to rebuild our relationship day by day. "Thank you," I said simply. Megan smiled, a genuine expression that reached her eyes. "Speaking of roommates, I've been looking at some apartments. Nothing fancy, but something I can afford on my gallery salary." I felt a pang of something, not quite sadness, but a recognition that things were changing again. "You know you're welcome here, as long as you need." "I know, and I'm grateful. But I need to stand on my own 2 feet, figure out who I am when I'm not defined by being your sister, or Tyler's wife, or Mom's daughter." She reached across the table, taking my hand. "But this time, I want you in my life every step of the way. No more secrets, no more competition, no more letting other people come between us." We had made that promise to each other the night of the confrontation, sitting on the deck of the lake house, as our world fell apart around us. So far, we had kept it navigating the painful aftermath with honesty and mutual support. "Deal," I said, squeezing her hand. "And speaking of family, I got an interesting invitation yesterday." I showed her the wedding invitation from our cousin Jessica, who had been among the guests at the lake house party and had witnessed the entire dramatic revelation. In the aftermath, she had reached out to apologize for her role in spreading rumors about me admitting her own jealousy, and insecurity had made her a willing participant in Catherine's campaign against me. "Are you going to go?" Megan asked. "I think so, but with clear boundaries. No drama, no rehashing the past, just moving forward with the family members who are willing to acknowledge what happened and make amends." I looked at her questioningly. "Would you come with me?" Megan considered the invitation. "Yes, I think that would be good. For both of us." She paused, then added, "Grandmother Claire would be happy to see us together." Our grandmother had been one of the few family members who had never bought into the narrative about me, who had questioned my absence at the wedding, and had ultimately provided crucial evidence through her diary notes. Now, in her 80s, she remained a beacon of unconditional love in a family landscape that had been devastated by manipulation and betrayal. She never gave up on either of us, I agreed, even when I was ready to give up on the whole family. As the afternoon light streamed through my kitchen windows, Megan and I continued talking, planning, rebuilding. The road ahead would not be easy. There would be legal battles with Tyler, difficult family dynamics to navigate, personal demons to conquer. But for the first time in years, we were facing it all together, our sisterly bond damaged but ultimately strengthened by the crucible of betrayal we had survived. "You know what I've learned from all this," Megan said as we cleared the table. "True family isn't about blood or obligation. It's about who stands by you when the truth is inconvenient, who loves you enough to tell you what you don't want to hear, who puts your welfare above their own agenda." "By that definition, we are definitely family," I replied, smiling at my sister. My real sister, not the stranger she had been molded into by years of manipulation. "Always have been," she agreed, even when I was too blind to see it. As we moved into the living room to watch a movie, a simple, normal activity that now felt precious, after so much turmoil, I reflected on the strange journey that had brought us here. A single phone call from an airport had unraveled decades of deception, unleashing pain, but ultimately leading to truth. The wedding I had missed had actually given me back the sister I had lost years before. Have you ever experienced betrayal by someone you trusted completely? How did you handle it? Did you cut them off or try to rebuild the relationship? Share your stories in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that even the deepest betrayals can sometimes lead to healing and truth. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, sometimes the people we think we know best are the ones we need to watch most carefully.